I live in Uxbridge, so we just got dumped on.
2017, you were our #1 realtor at the brokerage.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's absolutely amazing.
Thanks,
and
David.
Earlier this year, your customers have also spoken in a large way. Mississauga News every single year does a Reader's Choice Award. And I think this year over 6,000 realtors were nominated. And out of 6,000 applicants, you received the second position overall. I think you received the Platinum Reader's Choice Award.
I did.
And you were
quite honored with that.
Yeah, so are we. My God, Bruce. I mean, that's an unbelievable resume. And you were 14 votes away from receiving the #1 spot that went to a really, really large team that has over 40 realtors on the team. And to be 14 votes shy of the #1 position is just absolutely incredible. Bruce, we are so proud to have you on. We're so proud to have your level of consistency at our brokerage. And I'm just dying to get into this, to find out a little bit more about you. So please tell us your story. Tell us where it all began.
Well, thanks, David. And I got to, first of all, thank you and Sabia for inviting me to join you today. It's always my pleasure, and I'm always happy to give back and to share, because that's how I grew in the first place. So right off the bat, thank you and Sabia very much. So I'm born and raised in Toronto, and all I cared about growing up was my sports. That was the most important thing. I had a very athletic father who just really from birth always helped me with my sports, and I actually played them at a very high level all my life. The first job that I ever got was at the age of 12. I actually started working at the C&E Grandstand selling drinks. And I made 2.5 cents for every drink that I sold. But more importantly, what it taught me was, to start working for a living and to save money up for myself, etc. And just a work ethic that my father instilled in me, because my father had an incredible work ethic. So I learned that from him. From there, at the age of 16, I started working retail. I started working at Thrifties, and then to Le Chateau. And I actually struggled through high school. I was not the best student because I was just focused on my sports. But I was lucky enough to get out of high school and get to university. And I majored in hockey and tennis in university. And I played on both of those university teams and got through my university education. And after that, my first job was with TD Bank. I started in sales with TD Bank, and then went into sales again with Estee Lauder. And then the best thing happened for me. And I'll just tell you briefly, because it's an interesting story. I was interviewing. I wanted to work with a company. It was Johnson & Johnson Health Products. And I had interviewed with a number of big corporate companies. And they started interviewing me for the one position that they had available for, I think I interviewed opposite 600 people for that one position. And slowly but surely, after interview, got down to the final 6. And I was so excited. I remember meeting with my friends and saying, you know what, I'm going to get this job. I'm so excited. Got a call the next day from the headhunter saying to me, Bruce, I'm so sorry, but they chose someone else. And I was devastated, but I didn't let go. I said to myself, you know what, that's where I want to be. That's, who I want to be with. And I picked up the phone to call the guy who had interviewed me. And the guy said to me, oh, sorry, I take it back. I called him, but I changed my mind and I decided to write him a letter instead because I knew he could be having a rough day, one thing or another. Wrote him a letter. Anyway, long story short, 5 days later, I get a call from the headhunter. Don't know what you did, but you're now back in the interview process, and I ended up getting the job. So my eventual manager, after getting the letter, sent it to head office and said, this is the guy we want. He's very passionate about, being with us, etc. So that was actually the beginning of my sales career because, go ahead, David.
Sorry.
Bruce, I just wanted to point out to everybody, this is called resilience, not giving up. And that's what you need, right? Go from a point of resilience. Do not give up.
No is never a no. It's just a lot of the times it's not now.
That's exactly right. So, I had done sales my whole life, but really being with a corporation like Johnson & Johnson, that was my university education that I always wanted because I always wanted to be a salesperson. And they sent me on Xerox training courses. They sent me on seminars. They groomed me with everything. But the one thing that always stood out and always to this day was time management and always to be professional. And one of the things that my manager taught me, which I've never, ever forgotten, he came to me and he said, you know what, we're going on this meeting today. And I went, fine. And we showed up. He wanted to be there 15 minutes early. And he said to me, Bruce, let me teach you something. I'd rather you be there 15 minutes early than 1 minute late, always. And I've never forgotten that. When you have a meeting for 10 o'clock, that means 10 o'clock, not 10:05, not 10:10, whatever. And this happened a couple of times. I would go to someone's property for a listing presentation and I'd sit in my car because they're not expecting me at 5 to 10 or 10 to 10. And I'd walk in and they go, well, Bruce, we saw you sitting in your car. Why didn't you come in? I said, my meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock, not 10 to 10. And they said, and they laughed and whatever. So that was really the best lesson that I learned from Johnson & Johnson. They taught me everything but the professionalism, all the different tools to be a top sales representative.
That's so important, absolutely important. And there's a big learning lesson there when you're competing for a listing presentation. A lot of the times, showing up is half the battle.
Right.
When did you decide to get your real estate license? And why did you get your real estate license?
I'd done a number of things in my life up until then. And at around 1988, I decided to get my real estate license. And again, it's important that I share how I got my real estate license, because when I decided that was what I wanted to do, I actually called Rico, whoever, and said, I'd like to become a real estate agent. They went, oh, that's great. Okay, so the next course available is in 2 years from now. And I went,
Bruce, I'll kick in. Which year was this?
I believe it was 88. And it was a 2-year wait to take the course. And I said, well, hold on, there's got to be another way. And they went, yes, there is another way. You can wait in line at Ryerson. And if anyone drops out of the course, they might take you, but I'm going to tell you that's very slim because people really want to get their license. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I was in front of Ryerson that following Monday. The janitor actually came up to me and said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm waiting for the real estate course. He said, that's at 9 o'clock. I said, I know. Anyway, by the time 9 o'clock rolled around, there were 50 people behind me. Sure enough, at 9 o'clock, the course administrator came out and said, I'm so sorry, everyone. Everyone is, signed up here. Wish you good luck. Come another time. And I went up to the woman. I said, excuse me, please, I have to ask you something. You notice here that I'm first in line. She goes, yes, I do, but I'm sorry, there's no openings. I said, look, can I please just come in? I want to sit just in case someone drops out. Okay, fine. And I went in and I sat down and waited. And she kept on looking at me going, sir, no one's dropping out. I said, I don't care. I'm just going to sit here. And I sat and waited. At 11 o'clock, she looked at me and said, oh, okay, look it. you can't tell anyone ever, but I'm going to just put you in the class. I admire your persistence. And she put me into the class. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that was just, I may not have stuck it out for 2 years waiting to get my real estate license. So why did I do it? It's a very funny story. You know, one of the things I've always liked doing was dealing with people. And I realized one of the things that it could happen with real estate was to be a farmer. A farmer. And what do I mean by a farmer? I wanted to be a people farmer. I wanted to do exactly what farmers do on a day-to-day basis, but with people. So let's talk about what people do, you know, when they farm. So they have a plan, and every single day they do that plan. They plant the seeds, they water the seeds, they watch them and they monitor them every single day, and that's their family. And guess what? If they do their job properly, things grow. And I knew that with dealing with people and dealing with people properly, that would be the key to my success in real estate. And that was why I did it.
Wow. That's incredible. I love that story again of persistence, of resilience, and not taking no. I mean, there were like 4 no's thrown at you, right? The person that you called said no 2 years, right?
Right.
Then, the lady said there's no space in the class. Then you asked to come in and mentor the class, and then she still said no to you, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's just incredible. Right, for you
Thank
to
you.
persist through that, and great story, and thank you for sharing it.
And the other reason, David, was this: when I looked at it, I'd done a number of things in my life. When I looked at it, and I said to myself, "Okay, of all the things, what industry do you want to pick?" And believe me, that was a hard thinking process for me. And I realized one thing in particular about real estate. Well, if you look at something very seriously, what does absolutely everybody need? They need 2 things: food and shelter. Food and shelter. And I said, don't want to be in the food business, so I might as well be in the shelter business. And it was real estate.
Incredible. I love it. How did you initially get started?
So after I got my license, I interviewed with a number of brokerages, and I ended up at Royal LePage. Why did I end up at Royal LePage? At the time, Royal LePage was a market leader, and I wanted their support. I wanted their training. They offered a training program. But most importantly, when I was going to go out and speak to people, family, friends, whatever, I wanted to be with a name brand company rather than just with ABC Realty. So when I joined Royal LePage, and I had a fabulous broker manager, and I told him what my plan was, and he said, good for you, good for you. Yep. He sat me beside the #1 real estate agent in that brokerage. That was the best thing that could have happened for me, because all I did was sponge off him. I learned everything. His name was John Lavin. He was the #1 realtor at Royal LePage at the time. And we slowly but surely became extremely good friends. And all I did was watch what he did on a day-to-day basis. He was the most disciplined, organized person I had ever met. He would come in first thing in the morning. He'd look at all the different leads. He'd open up the listings, and I just mimicked what he did. And then sure enough, at 11 o'clock in the morning, he would say to me, okay, Bruce, you want to go door knocking? Okay. And that's all we did. We door knocked for 2 hours, and then we'd come back to the office. We'd make our notes, follow through. Who did we talk to? Who we're going to follow up with, whatever. And then at 5 o'clock, he'd say, okay, let's get on the phones. Who we're going to call today? And we'd have a list of people, and we would call. This was 7 days a week. Wow. I just absolutely, my whole career would not have happened without the help of John Lavin.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Talk about discipline. So what happened next?
What happened next was, unfortunately, we went into a recession. And I'd had a very good year, my first year. And then all of a sudden, things just started dropping off, and things just didn't happen for me anymore. And I went into my broker's office and he said to me, Bruce, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going into a recession and it's going to be quite a long one. You have to decide, do you want to stick it out in real estate or not? And I said, well, I don't know. I have to think about it. Luckily, I got a phone call from one of my clients. I thought it was to do with real estate. And they called me and they, out of the blue, offered me a job to work for them as a headhunter. They had a top headhunting company. I left real estate. Luckily, I parked my license and never let it go. And I went from headhunting. I worked in the golf business for a while. I did a number of different things. And eventually got into the music business, was in there for about 5 years. And guess what happened to the music business? Napster came along and ended the music business. And I was the vice president of a major company called Delta Music. And within 1 year, the music business was over. I had to make a decision what to do. I worked for one other company briefly, but things were not going well. And finally I said, you know what? It's time to get back to real estate. And luckily, John Lavin called me up and said, you know what? Why don't you come out to Mississauga and meet with my broker? And that was Brian McGuire.
Wow. So what happened?
So for all those that don't know who Brian McGuire is, because we have a lot of new agents on this list that is attending today, is he was the one who brought Sutton Summit to what it was. It started, I think, what was it? Another brokerage, right, David?
It was another brokerage, Home something.
Yeah, Home something. Yeah, it was something else. And he was who Bruce joined. He was who David joined, and myself, and so many others. He was our mentor. So
Right.
Go ahead, Bruce.
All right. So it's funny. I met with Brian, and I'd interviewed with a couple of other brokerages, all the main ones in Mississauga. And when I met with Brian, it was very funny. He laughed because he said, Bruce, you're interviewing me. I'm not interviewing you. And I said, that's correct, because I wanted to know that the place that I wanted to be was exactly run the way that I wanted it to run. And we spoke, my first meeting with Brian was 3 hours long. And we just wanted to talk about everything, my goals, my thoughts, and was he going to be able to support me with all of those things? And, it worked out extremely well. He said, Bruce, I admire you have a plan. You have a plan of what you want to do. And I think you're going to do very well if you do those things. Give me one moment, please.
Of course.
There's a few people that have joined later. So, and I know that there's quite a few new names to the brokerage. So just a quick run up. Bruce is and has been with the brokerage since, I think, 2003. He has been our top realtor for the last 16 years. There's flip and flop between the top, I think, 3 or 4. And Bruce has always been in the running. We're very, very proud of Bruce and what he brings to the table in terms of his experience, his path in sales and customer service. And Bruce is back, so I'll let him go ahead with it.
Thank you, Sabia. So one of the reasons, what I didn't say, when I joined Brian, I was absolutely at the bottom. And I want to make that clear because people always think, can I get into real estate? What's the timing like, et cetera, et cetera. Due to a couple of unfortunate situations in my life and work, one thing and another, when I joined Brian, and I'm not joking, when I joined Brian, I was 50 years old and I was renting an apartment and my bank balance was $5,000. That's all I had. I had made some bad investments, some things had happened, whatever. So when I joined Brian, most of it was due to desperation. I had to build a life for myself. And so I made that very clear to him. I told him what I had gone through in my life. And he said, Bruce, you have a plan. If you stick to that plan, it will work for you.
What was the plan, Bruce?
Well, one of the first things I did, I analyzed a lot of things. And I said to myself, if I was in fact going to specialize in Mississauga, so the first thing that I did is I looked at the whole overall Mississauga market and I said to myself, okay, what do I want to specialize in? And at the time, there were so many condo townhouses. And I said to myself, you know what? This is a huge marketplace that's been untapped. So I looked at all the different marketplaces and all the different condo townhouses. And there was one in particular that I really liked. And it was at 470 Faith, which was at Bristol and McLaughlin. And before I did anything, I did my homework and I did my analysis. And I realized what I had to do was find a market, an area, it didn't matter how big or small, that was not dominated by any agent. So I went into all the past sales and, history over a year, over 2 years, one thing and another. And sure enough, there were certain complexes that were dominated by certain agents. And I said, why am I going to bang heads with them? I want to find somewhere where it's wide open that maybe someone has done one deal or two deals. Anyway, the one complex that I absolutely loved, just the location of it, the style of it, etc., was 470 Faith, which is at Bristol and McLaughlin. And what did I do? I door knocked. One door after another, and just kept on doing it. And finally, this one guy came to the door and he said, what is it? I said, well, I'm a real estate agent. I was wondering if you were thinking of selling your home. He yells into the back. He goes, Mary, this guy here wants to know if we want to sell our home. She yells back, if he can get us $340,000, we'll sell our home. So he said to me, so can you get us $340,000? I went, yes, I can. I said, okay, come on in. So I went in. What did I sell that house for? $341,000. So that was my start. That was my first listing in Mississauga. And guess what I did after that? I door knocked and sent flyers and things to just 470 Faith because I didn't have the money for anything else. So 470 Faith, and all I did was farm that one complex initially. And slowly but surely it went further. People would call me in, and within the first 2 years, I think I had sold 15 properties at 470 Faith. As of now, I've sold, I think, 55 units in that complex. All I did was just, keep watering, calling, planting, doing whatever. And that's how I started.
That's amazing. I absolutely love that.
I just wanna chime in a quick thing about Bruce, a really interesting fact that Bruce has helped many of us in this brokerage. He's helped us through, and some of our top realtors, I think including Ash Alice, has learned a lot from Bruce. And we really, it's above and beyond. He's a really giving, wonderful person. And this series that I want to do in an ongoing series with our realtors is for people to understand that this is a brokerage where we share our experiences. And I really want to thank Bruce in the middle of the session for sharing all that you have, not just today, but in the previous years and hopefully for many years to come.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bruce, how much do you spend on your marketing initiatives? And the obvious question there is, has it paid off?
It has paid off. Shortly after I got back into real estate, I knew that I had to, learn what was going on in the industry, et cetera. And I remember flying to Phoenix, Arizona, and I went for a 3-day seminar. And that seminar really changed my outlook on real estate, because what I did was I became a sponge at that seminar, and I just listened and I talked to everybody. They were all top producers. I think there were 5,000 people from North America at that seminar. And by the way, I went with someone in the brokerage at the time. His name was Stephen Pointer, and we had a great time. And it was better to be there with him because we, bounced ideas off each other. There were 2 or 3 things that jumped out at me. One of the things was the professionalism of all of these top producers, how they dressed, how they spoke, every single thing. And I made a note here. There was one thing in particular. Oh, right. Okay. So you asked David about marketing. One of the things that they said is you have to invest in your business. And what they said is to a maximum, don't ever spend over 20% of your income from the year before, but spend at least 10%. So let's just say, for example, you're making $100,000 a year. You should be at least investing $10,000 a year in your marketing initiatives the following year. And, you have to put that back, all the time. Otherwise, you're just not investing in your business. One of the other things that they absolutely stressed, because I was, doing quite well at the time, one of the things that the things that they stressed on was, why waste time doing the menial jobs in your business that you should be out doing the most important things? Hire an assistant. And I've got to tell you, I'm sure most of you know that I've been working together with an agent in our office. Her name is Tina McQuaid, for about 14 years. I would never, ever have gotten to the level that I got to at all without Tina McQuaid's assistance. She was not just an assistant, she was my office manager. She ran everything for me. We were best friends. We still are best friends. And that was one of the key things that I came away with.
That's amazing. So what did you do to grow your business, Bruce?
Well, I think the most important things, I watched, I listened, and I learned from the best. Whether it was seminars that I went to, coffees, I became, as I started doing deals with some of the top agents, I would phone them up and ask them if they would go for a coffee with me and just, share real estate stories and ideas and one thing and another. And, one of those people was Sam McDaddy. I met with Sam on numerous occasions, and I have the utmost respect for him. Even though we do the business differently, Sam is an absolute icon, and he decided to go the route of a team. I chose another, and that was by choice, to work just for myself and, run my own business personally rather than to run a team. But, everything, like, I learned, I asked questions, I went to seminars and made notes as to follow the path of the successful agents out there.
So what would you say you've done differently from other agents in the business?
Well, one of the things that I do pride myself on is my professionalism. But that was groomed into me at a very early age. And, it's one thing to say you're a salesperson. It's another thing to do it properly. And luckily I had mentors all the way along. And even at the brokerage, there are a lot of people, when I got started, I'm going to point one out in particular, Gordon Daly. I mean, I looked at Gordon Daly and he was my absolute role model. I mean, he was the king, and I watched him, and we went out for meals and I would, go on things with him and whatever. He did the business properly. And that was one of the most thing. The other thing, I answer every single phone call. I don't care whether it's day or night. I don't care what I'm doing. I don't care where I am. I answer the phone. I mean, I put out so much money with my marketing and advertising to get my name out there. It drives me crazy when you try to reach an agent and they don't even return their phone call within one day. So, I strongly suggest that, that's why you're doing your marketing and advertising, is for the phone to ring. If you don't answer that phone, I guarantee they will go to the next one in line. So even if I'm busy with something, I'll answer the phone and I will say to them, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I'm a little tied up right now. Can I get your name and phone number? And I promise I'll give you a call back within a half an hour. They're not going to someone else.
No,
They're not. So that was one of the other things that I did. I work extremely hard. Now, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I work from February to June, I work 7 days a week, and I put in long, long days. I then take off most of the summer, if not all the summer, and I start again in September, and I work to December, and then I take off December and January, and I feel that's a long, well-deserved break for me. But during those times, I mean, it's round the clock. You just work at your business during the prime times. So the other thing, I'll tell you two very quick stories, and I truly do care about my clients. I'll give you an example of that, and then one other. I remember going out, I had sold a couple their property. I'd already sold their property, and we were looking for another property. Their names are Stella and Gabe. And it was driving them crazy. They just couldn't find the right property. And we walked into one, and all of a sudden, you know, I looked to Stella and I said, "So Stella, what do you think?" And she said, "Yeah." I went, "Okay." And Gabe, what do you think? And he went, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh, okay, well, get in your car." And they went, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's not your home." I said, "It's not your home." And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't want you to just say, okay, this is your home. I want you to love your home." And Stella broke out crying, and she said, "Bruce, I know, I'm just so frustrated." I said, "I know, and don't worry, we're going to find you your home." About a week later, after showing her 3 more homes, we walked into this one property, and after 5 minutes, Stella turned around to me, crying her eyes out, "This is our dream home." That's what it's all about. That's the caring. And guess what? To this day, I'm still so close with them, but that's what it's all about. The other one, I remember doing an open house about 3 years ago, and this woman walked in, and she was so funny. She said, "I just want you to know, I'm not selling my home, but I want to see this home." I said, "That's fine." And I started talking to her. She said, "I live on the street here." I said, "That's fine." And we were talking. And so, "What do you think about this?" And I said, and I told her everything. "Well, okay, come see my home and tell me what you think." Came to see her home. We had a nice coffee at her home. We talked. Every year, 3, 4, 5 times a year, I'd give her a call and I'd say, "Angie, how are you doing?" "Oh, it's you again." "Okay, no, I'm not selling. Okay. Guess who I heard from this year, 3 years after the fact?
No way.
Angie calls me, "Bruce, it's time. I want you to come." I sold her house and I bought her another house this year. So that's one of the keys, that you've got to follow up with these people. And it's, you know, it's what it's all about.
Do you use a CRM program for your follow-ups?
I do. I have all of that, but you know, that was basically what I did. And I gave to Tina to follow up with everything for that. You know, we'd have weekly meetings as to, you know, what to do, how to do it, etc. But she handled all of that.
So she reminded you of the follow-ups.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now here's the last thing with that particular category that you're talking about. I've said to myself over and over again, don't be a yabbut. Y-A-B-U-T, yabbut. You don't know what it is.
No.
And here's what everyone does. In the middle of hearing what people want and what they're talking about, whatever, the agent jumps in and says, "Oh yeah, but, and they interrupt them. They don't let them talk. You know, this is a listening business. This is all about listening to people, what their needs are, what their wants. It has nothing to do with you. And if you don't truly listen to them, and look, I'm going to go into it later on. I've made some notes as to some of the keys, and I'll go into that in a minute. But go ahead, David.
Okay. So what are the keys to your ongoing success?
I've written down some things here, and there's no question, one of the things, and I was groomed with this my whole life, and it's really from my mother and father and just my upbringing. I have a positive attitude about everything. My glass is full, period. I always think optimistically and positively. I remember in particular, there was a situation, I went into Sutton. I'm not going to mention the name of the agent. And I remember an agent coming up to me a couple years ago and saying, Bruce, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, sure. And they said, oh, you won't believe what happened to me. And they went into this whole story. This person did this and this, and I just listened. I went, oh, I'm really sorry to hear. Oh, and they went on and on and on. I said, I'm sorry to hear, but don't worry, everything will be fine. I said, by the way, when did this happen? 2 months ago. 2 months ago? Are you kidding? Something bothers me maybe for 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour or something. Next, just move on to the next. So you just can't dwell in the negative ever. So that's one of the keys. Secondly, to have a concrete written plan of action. I do that. I am like disciplined with that every night before I go to sleep. And I do it on purpose. Before I go to sleep, I make a list. And I mean, I sit and make a list of everything that is on my mind that I want to accomplish, etc. And it sits on my desk for the following morning. Now, I may not get to everything, but I prioritize absolutely everything. What is going to make my business money today? Today, forget about going to Shoppers Drug Mart. It might be on the list, but it's number 20 on the list. Okay, so that's the number one thing, is organized and disciplined with that. Let me see what else here. Time management, that goes without saying. You only have so much time, and I hate wasting time. So just make sure that you allot. By the way, that goes with everything. That goes with your business, but it also goes with your life, your social life, your family life, friends, everything like that. Make time management, make, time for everyone that's important to you in your life. Be remembered of something, and that is, we're sales representatives. Sales representatives. We're not customer service representatives. We're in sales. And I absolutely implore all of you out there, if you did not get into real estate because of a sales background that you had, learn sales. Because if you don't, I don't care how much you know about homes, but if you don't know how to make a sales presentation properly, if you don't know how to ask for the listing, if you don't know how to close a deal, anything to do with sales, pick up. There are probably thousands of books on sales, and particularly sales in real estate. You have to do that. Just because you got your real estate license does not in any way guarantee success. But if you learn how to be a real estate sales representative, that will help you. The next, never waste time. Let's just talk about buyer representation agreements. Now, I know a lot of people have fear of it. I had a fear of it for the longest time, because you just have to figure out how to do it. But I will tell you, I will not walk out of my office at all until I have a buyer representation agreement signed, period. Period. I remember one time in particular, I said to this one person that I would be willing to sign a buyer representation with them to show them one condo and write it on the thing that it was only for that one condo, period. I said, if you like me, we'll continue working, under the buyer representation agreement. But for this one time, I'll show you the condo, but only if you agree that if you like it and you buy it, you will buy it from me. And he agreed. I went to the condo, we're in the lobby, and he said, okay, let's go. And I went, oh, sorry, we still have to sign the BRA. No. I said, wait a second, we had an agreement. You have to sign the BRA, otherwise I'm not showing you the condo. He said, show me the condo and then I'll sell it. I went, goodbye. I walked out the door. So I will not do that. Our time is the most important thing. I will not waste time with tire kickers, and I don't want to be a tour guide to show people 4 or 5 or 6 homes without them committing to working together with me. Okay, the next thing is never cut corners. Ever, ever, ever. This is your livelihood. This is what you do. When I got into real estate, I made a promise to myself that under no circumstances ever would I end up in front of RICO ethics. And touch wood, I never have. I never cut corners on anything. If I'm not sure, I will find out the answer, but I will never say something that is not something that I know to be true. And I will never put on a listing something that isn't to be true. I remember in particular, there was someone, sadly, in our brokerage who looked at the square footage of the property that they were listing, and it was 2,700 square feet or 2,800 square feet. And the agent wrote on the listing 3,000 square feet. And so everyone questioned the agent, what are you talking? Is it really three? Well, it's close. No, it's not close. It's 2,700 square feet. And I'll never forget that. So never cut corners at all. Just do everything right by the book, period. Next thing, client follow-up. As I mentioned earlier about farming and that, if you don't follow up with your past clients, you are missing the most important part of your business. Because if in fact they liked dealing with you, you will get so many referrals from those people, but you have to keep in touch with them. You have to keep in touch with them. And I'll go into it a little bit later as to how that all, can take place. Here's part of it now. When I go on a listing presentation, and you're going to laugh, my listing presentation is typically 3 hours long. 3 hours. The first half hour to an hour, nothing to do with real estate. Everything to do with them, their background, the names of their children. I'm making notes, the name of their pets. Where does the kid go to school? What sports does the kid play? What are their interests? What are their everything? That's how I build my business. I want to learn everything about my client because their birthdays, their anniversaries, everything, they get something from me, whether it's a card, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a follow-up. And they go, Bruce, I can't believe you remembered it's our anniversary. I said, absolutely. How could I not forget? So, those are important things, how to build your business.
That is brilliant, Bruce. Absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Thank you. Client appreciation events. I got to tell you, it's the most important. And my good friend, Ash Ellis, I have so much respect for Ash. Ash totally gets how this business is run. And he does all the things that I'm telling you, plus. So, one of the things that he does, maybe he saw that I was doing it. I have a client appreciation event every single year. It's the biggest event. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it this year because of COVID. And people were calling me saying, Bruce, I missed the event. I can't believe we're not having it this year. It was something that people looked forward to every single year. Okay. Handwritten notes. I know I'm old school, but the bottom line is within 1 week, I will be sending out hundreds and hundreds of handwritten, personalized Christmas cards to every single one of my clients. Okay, you can send them an email, you can do whatever. I'm just saying certain little things, whether it's a gift or a follow-up gift or something like that, those always, are top of mind. Let me just think if there's anything else. I don't think so. No, I want to just reach out to a couple of people in the brokerage that have meant a lot to me. Obviously I mentioned Brian McGuire and Jack Ellis, who were instrumental in me joining, but I've got to tell you, even after Brian sold the brokerage to Blair Armstrong, and unfortunately that didn't work out for Blair, and I wish him all the very best. But the bottom line was he was a raw guy who absolutely loved Sutton and did, when he was running the ship, he absolutely did everything to push the Sutton Group Summit brand. So, a reach out to him. But there are other people. Bill Orr, one of my closest friends in the brokerage, one of the nicest, classiest guys out there and the most giving. He is the most genuine guy I know. And, he just keeps working away at his business. He doesn't have to, but he loves it. And he loves helping people. I've got to reach out to Glad Ho and to Holly Maricotti, who, between the three of us, who had been, number 1, 2, and 3 in the brokerage for about 15, 16 years running. You don't get to that point without the dedication and persistence and perseverance in your business. So I'll reach out to them and to someone else, to Randy Seltzer. Randy and I have been very, very good friends. And Randy came to me many, many years ago and, like me, was down in the dumps and really was struggling with his business. Well, guess what? Randy did what he had to do, and he's built up his business again. And I give him all the credit. I'm sure there are lots of other people that I'm not, talking about. And look at David, Sabia, you're running a great show right now, which is why I'm staying with the brokerage. I would have no thoughts of even thinking of leaving. And all of your support staff and all the people, Manny at the front desk, she's an institution. And again, all the support staff that you have make it a pleasure for me to do the business on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Bruce, I'm going to unmute Ash. He has a question, and I think it should come from him. I heard from David that Ash has finished his or completed his 100 deals already for the year.
Yes.
So he's a monster in the business.
Yes, he is.
And does it just how it should be. So it would be really nice to hear from Ash. Ash, you can go ahead and take over.
Hey, Bruce, how's it going?
Great, Ash. How are you?
Good. You're right, Bruce. I did steal that idea of client parties from you. I did get that from you. I have a lot of respect for Bruce. He's taught me a lot as I grew up in real estate. So, Bruce, my question for you is for someone who is starting out or has no deals in the pipeline today. We're coming into Christmas. What could we do to build that pipeline? What are you doing? I know you said you're sending out the Christmas cards with the handwritten notes. What could we do to build for 2021? That is my question.
Okay, so it's a great question, Ash. And look at you actually specified, with someone who's new in the business. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes,
so,
I'm looking to answer that question for someone who's new, someone who doesn't have a pipeline, and we're watching this video and we're like, how do we start today? It's December 10th or whatever date today is, right?
Here's what I would do. If they already have a plan in mind as to what they want to do for 2021, the best thing that they can do is do research and find a very, very small niche. I don't care how many homes it is. Find that small niche and go after that small niche right now by sending them something, whether it's a calendar with a candy cane, something that they can at least follow up on next year by hopefully door knocking or cold calling, but start small. Everyone feels like, when I first started my first farm area, and I started farming at Bristol and McLaughlin, it was 125 homes because that's all I could afford. And that's all I planned to do. Sure enough, it grew to 300, grew to 500. It's now 5,000. 5,000. How did it start? By the personal touches with a very few people and making sure you make those personal touches. Now, obviously, friends and family have to be contacted if you're brand new to let them know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and that you're there to help them all the time. But in the way of starting out with someone, I would start with a small group, a small network. Make sure that no one is specializing in that particular area that they want to work. Find it and start farming it right now. Because especially with COVID, there's a perfect example. You can't do the business like you used to do it. Well, guess where most of my business is coming from? Like you, Ash, I've had one of my best years this year. Why? Not from the new business, from all the referrals of old business and all my past clients who, one way or another, still want to continue using me. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start small. And if you start small by just getting a one little part of a street or part of a complex or something, and make sure they know who you are, and continue doing that every month, some sort of a market update about their complex, about what's going on in the industry, a little gift, a little calendar, a little pen, something. And then hopefully by next summer, if the COVID is over, guess what? They knock on the door and they go, "Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself to you personally. I'm so-and-so." "Oh yeah, no, we got some things." That's how you build it.
Bruce, that's great. I wanted to echo that same sentiment where you talked about the Christmas card with the candy cane. I like that idea because that's memorable. It stands out as opposed to all the other cards we might be getting. Just that little three-dimensional piece that comes on. That's a pretty good idea. Bruce, there's another great idea which you shared with me many years ago. It's the one where, and I'm just bringing it up here,
Sure.
where you say go and knock on the neighbor. Like if there's another listing, not necessarily yours, but it could be a Remax, and you circle knock the doors around that, right? And I think that's a great idea as well. I know we can't do it with COVID, but that was another great idea of yours.
Thank you, Ash. No, and I thank you for your compliments, but you know what? I learned from some of the best in the brokerage before I was there. So, those were the people. I picked their brains like you picked mine, and Randy and whoever, have asked me all the way along, "Bruce, how do I do this? What should I do with this?" Whatever. We're here to save people time so they don't go through all the bumps that we went through.
Thank you, Bruce.
My pleasure always, Ash.
Bruce, I have a question circling back to your BRA. I absolutely love the fact that, you mentioned that time is really important, and you mentioned that you don't show any properties before getting a BRA signed. Do you have a system in place of how you go ahead to get that process initiated, started, and completed? If you can very quickly share your script with us, or take us through the steps that you use to get people under a BRA before even leaving your house.
Well, the most important thing you've got to make it clear to them is that they're not paying you anything. They're not paying you one penny, that the seller pays the brokerage their fee. So right off the bat, they're using all of your expertise and they're not paying anything for it. Secondly, I want to make it absolutely clear to them the difference between working with a client versus a customer. And I make it very clear to them, I don't work with customers. I only work with clients. And if you want to work with me as a client, you'll sign the buyer representation agreement to get my exclusivity and everything to do with how I run my business.
So you're very upfront about that whole process.
Everything. And I know some people are going to say, well, I just met the person. They may not want to sign a blanket BRA. I understand that. And I went through that myself. And what I will do is, depending on after I pre-screen someone to know that they're qualified and they're not going to waste my time, what I will do is offer them a one-time complimentary courtesy visit to a property, but only after they sign a BRA for that one property. If they're not willing to sign a BRA for that one property, won't work with them at all. If they do sign it for that one property, guess what? It gives me the opportunity to be in front of them, sell myself to them, give them all of my marketing material and everything about me, my background, to hopefully get them to sign a blanket BRA to work together with me, which I've done hundreds of times.
And I see the thought process there. I see exactly what you're doing. I'm understanding that you're running your business, and I think after they experience, going through that process with you, I think they're going to very quickly understand that, you know what, you are a professional, you take your business very seriously. And if you take your business this seriously, you're going to take their business seriously as well. And it just transfers from your actions as well. So, I think a lot of agents really struggle with this, but I think it's such an important step. And I think as a lot of agents have a listing presentation, very, very few agents have a buyer presentation. And I think it absolutely needs to be part of your tool chest, right? And Treb has an easy, plain English to read agreement of purchase and sale that has all the clauses pre-printed in red, right? So I know when I was really actively selling, that was part of my buyer representation, is that agreement. It was a map, a neighborhood map with homes that I kept in there as well. There were a glossary of terms, real estate terms I had in that binder. And I remember the first time I sat down with a buyer to get a BRA signed, and I gave them that presentation. I showed them that presentation. I went through it with them. They signed instantly without any questions. Right. So I think it's just having that approach, having that system, having something to give to show that you are running a business is so vitally important. Right. And like you said, time is a limited factor that we have. There's 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. So there's a limiting time there, and not wasting your time and not going off and wasting your time showing customers buy houses without a BRA is absolutely critical.
Right.
Do we have any other questions for Bruce? I'm going to open up the floor and see if there are any other questions from anybody in the brokerage.
I have another question, if I could.
Ash, I'm going to start charging you.
Oh, so Bruce, my question is around charging. So the objection comes to you, Bruce, I don't want to pay 5% or whatever it is you charge for listing my home. Okay. I think that's high.
Absolutely. And we hear that question, Ash, as you know, all the time. And I'm going to defer that one to my old mentor, Gordon Daly, who groomed me on that one. And here's what he said. It's not an issue if you make the right listing presentation. It's not an issue. One of the key things that I do when I go on a listing presentation is I outline to them all the different things that I'm going to be talking about. And guess who brings up commission first? Me. I know it's on their mind. I know it's probably top of their mind, but I'm the one who brings it up. And I say to them, here's what I'm going to be covering during my listing presentation with, I don't call it a listing presentation. Here's everything that I'm going to be covering with you today. And I go over everything. And then I said, and by the way, absolutely, I'm going to be talking about fees and everything to do with fees. Guess what? It's already been addressed. And halfway through, not even a quarter way through my presentation, guess what I say? I know what you're thinking. I haven't brought up the fees yet. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the presentation. Again, I touched it. Later on, after an hour and a half. By the way, I've gone over almost everything. I know you're probably wondering about the fee structure. I'm going to talk about that shortly. Guess what? When I get to it, the elephant's out of the room. They already knew that I was going to talk about it. They haven't been anxious and sitting there the whole presentation wondering, what's he going to charge me? What's he going to charge me? What's he going to charge me? It's out there. Then what I say, and this was Gord Daly's number one thing. If you give the most thorough presentation out there, covering absolutely everything, and that it justifies your fee, whatever that fee is, and that you are feeling comfortable working with, they won't touch it. They won't touch it. if they believe in you and they trust you and they know that you're the best, they will question it, but they'll still stay with you. If you go in, that's why I said earlier, my listing presentation is 3.5 hours long. My success rate, as I'm sure yours is, Ash, my success rate with listing presentations is somewhere around 95%. The industry average, 75%. Because most people walk in there, walk around the house, cut up the home and tell the seller how bad their home is and what they should fix and what they should do. And here's the price and here's what, and goodbye, and they walk out the house. That's not what someone wants. They want to build trust with you. They want to know you. They want to get to know you, your style, what you're going to do for them, what all the different things. Once you get to the price, it very rarely becomes an issue. If it does become an issue, then yes, I will handle it and I will draw the line in the sand depending on what my needs are and what my wants are. And I make that very clear. They can ask whatever they want. And guess what? There are budget agents out there who work at real estate 5 hours a week and they do 2 or 3 other jobs and they're just happy to get their sign on the lawn. That's not what I'm about. I'm a full service agent who, based on my record and everything that I've done, you know what? You have a choice. Do you want to shop at a no frills and go for bargains and whatever? Got the wrong guy. If you want the best service, if you want someone to handle all of the things for you properly and to make you extra money at the negotiating table, I'm the guy.
Got me.
I love it. Bruce, do you ever go out there and offer additional services like painting, cleaning, those kind of things over and above the traditional listing stuff?
You have to, Ash. You know, that wasn't the case years and years ago, but now staging is a buzzword that everyone knows about. And now, unfortunately, we've got competitors out there, and I'll use Sam as an example, Sam McDaddy. I went to visit with Sam at his brokerage, and guess what? He has got a warehouse bigger than our office full of staging material. He has his own stager, and guess what? Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, okay. So, and good for Sam. And a lot of agents are now starting to do that. You have no choice. You have to do it. But think about it. If you do it once and you get burned, you lose the listing, okay. But if you lose 5 listings because you don't provide those extras, guess what? You've lost 5 deals.
I agree. I'm starting to offer things like painting and fixing up the house. Like I'm doing one right now. We're shampooing the carpets, cleaning the house because the tenants left it as a mess, painting, all of that. And it's all built in, one stop. It's all done in like 5 days. And then I pop it at 6-7%, whatever it, covers the cost, and it works. So, you got to think outside of the box.
You do.
Thank you, Bruce.
Always a pleasure.
Bruce, you mentioned that in your career, your magic number was 20% that was set aside for marketing.
That was max, David.
The maximum was 20%.
Max.
Okay. What was the lowest? What would you say the range is?
I think the lowest should always be 10. Nothing lower than 10.
Nothing lower than 10.
Nothing lower than 10.
Okay.
You can say to yourself, well, I don't know. I remember when I first started, and I didn't have a lot of money when I first started, but I still set aside money for flyers. I remember walking into Sutton Group at the very beginning, creating a flyer at home and using the fax machine, the photocopier, and making up 200 black and white flyers that I then delivered door to door. So you get creative, you do what you have to do, but do something. And I got to tell you, some of the the best things, I look at my business at least once a month and I say to myself, what's working? What's not working? I'm not going to say the company, but I just got rid of a company. They did a sales pitch on me and they wanted me to get involved with them. They did nothing. Well, you know what? After I gave them a month, then I gave them a second month. Finally, I called them up. I said, sorry, you know what? Cancel everything. Well, no, we want to cancel everything, because I look at it and I say, is there a return on my investment? And if you're not looking at your business and knowing what runs your business, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Sutton Summit, I mean, as a brokerage, we have a great history of bringing key partnerships on the table, and finding resources and providing resources to our agents. And I mean, your example of using an out-of-the-box marketing company, trying them out, seeing if it works. It doesn't work. You set criteria. You set some metrics that you go ahead and you look at, and if the metrics are not performing up to your standards, you cut them loose and you move on to the next idea. But
Right.
It's always trying to bring somebody on. It's always trying to try something new in your business, see what's working, see what isn't.
You know, David, obviously because of where, the level that I'm at right now, I get easily 5 to 10 phone calls a week from companies trying to get me to sign up with them, saying, I can get you this and I can do this and I can do that. Well, you know what? I'll give them a little bit of time to hear, or I'll have them send me the information that I'll look at, but most of them, no interest.
Right. But you are strategic in how you advertise and what works for you, and trying new services out there.
With everything.
Excellent. Do you have any other questions for Bruce? Well, Bruce, the other thing you mentioned earlier in the webinar is that you spent a lot of time taking top performers and talking to top performers and brainstorming with top performers. And I truly hope that the agents are on this call really take advantage and reach out to myself, Sabia, Ash, you, and really, take you up on your offer of sharing more information with them, because Bruce, let me tell you, you are a wealth of knowledge. The consistency of your performance over the last 16 years speaks for itself. And I just really wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on here and for sharing.
Thank you very much, David. It's always a pleasure. And I wish everyone a great, happy, and healthy Christmas and New Year, and hopefully we'll be over this stupid pandemic very soon and back to our normal way of life in real estate.
Yep. One of our newest members of our family, Vandana, just asked a great question. She said, Bruce, you are legendary. Have you thought of succession planning?
I have. I have. Thank you very much. I have a number of things in the works right now that I'm thinking about. I'm getting near to the end of my career. It's been great. I've loved every moment of it. I don't know how much longer I want to continue doing it. But yes, I have thought about a number of different things. And, if anything comes out that I think I should share with Sutton, I'm absolutely going to do that.
Bruce, I have a very quick question. I think Ash kind of touched on it, but I know that you do your annual, the luncheon that you do, and because of COVID, you've not been able to do it. What have you replaced it with?
Well, it's interesting that you should say that. There wasn't very much that I could replace it with now. I had a couple of ideas to do in the fall, and just for logistics and one thing another, it just couldn't happen. I've been making a point during COVID to reach out personally. Usually I'll just send them an email or a text message to touch base with them. I've been on the phone on a regular basis with my clients and speaking to them personally rather than electronically. So just the other day, actually, I called one of my past clients and wish them a happy anniversary. I was on the phone with them for 10 minutes, finding out everything about their family, what's been going on. You know, and look at it, most people are cooped up at home. And I truly think that they're welcoming to a phone call, especially if you've had a nice relationship with them. So what I try to do is touch base with everyone. Normally it's electronically, but now with COVID, way more personalized.
Thank you so much, Bruce. This was wonderful.
It's my pleasure always, guys. All the very best, and we'll do it again sometime next year.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
We
Bruce.
look forward to it.
Okay, bye-bye.